What's up, everybody? Thrall's Mellow here once again. I'm Nathrakh Nick.
I'm Jam and John.
And we are back with our part two of bands that arguably their debut album was their best album, but we decided to put a spin on it, and instead of just coming up with our own list, which we definitely could have, we decided to put it on you guys, the viewers. So we put up a post, and we had you guys comment what you feel are bands that start off with their best album in terms of a debut. And we're pretty much just going to weigh in on it, and we figured this was kind of a good way to get some audience participation because that video was a lot of fun to do, and it definitely stirred up a lot of conversation.
Yep, the people spoke, and we listened, or read, or did whatever we did, but yeah. You guys picked some bangers, so we're going to go over them and put in our 2 cents, or cent and a half, 3 cents, I don't know.
$3.50.
About $3.50. So the first one from Trendkiller, posted actually 23 minutes ago, is Cynic with Focus. Now, if you've seen this channel at all, you know that we are giant Traced in Air fans. It's always been Traced in Air for me. It will probably always be Traced in Air.
Yeah, Traced in Air kind of outdoes it. I think Focus is an absolutely brilliant album. Like, it's 1A and 1B there. Like, if you choose either album, you made a wise choice.
Right.
But, I mean, across the board, I think just Traced in Air kind of wins it. You know, I think the music just is a little bit catchier, and God, the drum performance is a clinic. It is like one of my favorite drum performances on any album.
Most any record, yeah. Yeah, it's something else. But yeah, still a good pick.
Oh, hell yeah.
The next one from Chris Hansen. Chris Hansen.
Why don't you have a seat there? What are you doing?
Why don't you have a seat? Let's talk about it.
You brought pizza? She's 13.
Pizza and wine coolers. What were you gonna do? From Chris Hansen, 8250, it is System Divide with Consciousness Sedation.
This is a bit of a cheat, I'm gonna call it, because that's the only album by this band, and I have it. It's like kind of a melodeath, maybe metalcore-ish project that Sven from Aborted was, I think he was just playing drums in it, or maybe bass. He wasn't singing. It was actually a female frontman. He might have been doing vocals. I don't know. It's been a while since I listened to it, but that's their only debut album. I don't know how Sven would have time to even do another project at this point, with as busy as Aborted is, but I guess by default, I agree, because it's the only one.
I've actually never heard it. I know. Shame on me. But seeing it's how it's the only one, I guess I don't have to hear it. I can just say it's the best one because it's the only one. So, boo for me and yay for me at the same time. Next up is from the Sumerian. They say Soulfly's debut for me.
Oh, man. That's a tough one.
Look, I mean, obviously that got me into Soulfly. That's where this tattoo came from, was listening to that first record. As for me personally, as much as I like Soulfly's debut, I have to say Back to the Primitive. I jammed the dog shit out of that record. But Soulfly's debut album at the same time is really good.
Yeah, no, I jammed Dark Ages a lot. I like that one. Actually, Prophecy is pretty awesome, too. I really liked the last one, too. I thought that was a banger. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I can't say for certain I agree with that one. I do love the debut, but I'm gonna go with I disagree on that one, but I still think it's an awesome album.
Yeah. This is from Ignacio Ramos. I think that's right. Ignacio Ramos 1320 with Rage Against the Machine's debut. I personally agree. Nick.
I'm torn because I love Battle of Los Angeles too. Like, those are kind of like 1A and 1B for me. I'm going to kind of take the undecided route because both those albums are incredible. I like Evil Empire too. Like, it's a good album too, but those two albums, like, you can't go wrong with them, really. I love them.
I do too. Next, from Steven Anderson 3936, he says Linkin Park's debut. I'm going to say, for me personally, I don't like Linkin Park. Period.
I did at one point. Hybrid Theory, honestly, it became like the Black Album where I just got tired of hearing it on the radio because, like, I forget how many songs became giant singles.
Most all of them off that record, I think.
Dude, it just became inescapable. Like, you turn on the radio, like, oh, there's the Linkin Park song. I'll just change channel over the other rocks. Nope, there's another one. I'm just going to, like, say, like, Meteor because I didn't hear as many tracks on that one, so I'm just going to disagree. And that album I can still go back to because it wasn't all over the radio.
I'm just going to say that in the end, it didn't even matter. Joe RG or George721, I don't know. They say Manowar. Now, I will state openly that I am not a giant Manowar fan and have maybe heard 3 or 4 songs out of the encompassment of their discography. I have no idea.
I don't know. I feel like all their albums should come with like a bottle of baby oil. I can't with that band. I don't know. Like I granted, like they kind of sound like Judas Priest a bit, but I've never been that into them. I just feel like I could listen to Judas Priest instead, and oddly enough, it would be less homoerotic, which is really strange.
Next in line from Aiming High 276, we have Pantera's Metal Magic, which I will strongly disagree.
Hard no. Oh my god, that album, that's like my least favorite Pantera album. Like you're on the other end of the spectrum there. I mean, if you love it, you love it. I have questions.
I do too.
Just because like all of the other albums exist. I know like the Glamtera years definitely have their fans. I mean, we even heard from them when we ranked Pantera, like, how can you not like Projects in the Jungle? Like, because we listened to it.
It's Far Beyond Driven for me.
Yeah, Far Beyond Driven's like kind of the GOAT for me there. But like, literally, like, power metal on, I think, is all better than Metal Magic. But, you know.
I will state that too.
At least I got to make fun of this cover again because, man, what is this thing? Why does it have 47 abs?
Well, it's magic.
Magical abs. Like, he's got muscle groups that don't exist on anything ever.
From Jedi Master Fola 7003, we have Nails with Unsilent Death.
All right. Every Nails album is awesome.
Correct.
I'm even probably going to go out on a limb here and say this next Nails album will probably be awesome, too.
I mean, they can do no wrong in my eyes.
I got Abandon All Life and Unsilent Death at the same time, and I lean a little bit more towards Abandon All Life. Like, I don't know, like they somehow made that sound even more vicious than it sounds on the debut, which Unsilent Death is, I mean, it's Nails. They don't do anything other than the most heavy, just hateful, mean shit.
My personal favorite is You Will Never Be One of Us, but...
It's a great album.
But once again, like Nick said too, they can do no wrong. I love Nails, period. And I will never turn down listening to any Nails album, regardless of what it is. So there's no really right answer there.
There's no wrong answer either. You chose Nails, so you win.
Right, exactly. So props to you. Next from Joe DeGroot 76, we have Monstrosity with Imperial Doom.
I'm going to say that the whole discography is awesome. I love every Monstrosity album, which makes this one very problematic, because that debut is an absolute banger. But I love Millennium. I love In Dark Purity. You can't go wrong with this band's discography. You're going to be greeted to just some of the best Floridian death metal that, sadly, not as many people have heard, because this band is so damn unrated.
I have not heard the entire discography. In fact, it wasn't until a few years ago that I actually heard Monstrosity for the first time, courtesy of this guy. Surprise, surprise.
I would say like maybe Rise to Power is their weakest one. Guess what? It's not that weak. It's just weak in comparison to other killer albums. I'm going to go undecided on this one just because, yeah, it's a tough one.
Next from Dom 138, we have Grave, Into the Grave, which... I have to be honest, I'm not going to lie here. I hadn't heard that album until right before we did this video. You can't hear it all. You just can't. And I will admit that openly, that you can't hear it all. So I kind of have to sit this one out, other than to say that first record is killer because I listened to it and it's fucking killer. But I can't weigh in as to say what I like better. So I got to sit out. But Nick?
Grave's got some killer albums, and... it's kind of 1A, 1B between the first two. Like, I love Into the Grave. But You Will Never See is the first one I ever picked up. So that one might hold a little bit more sway here. So I'm going to go with, a disagree on that one just because You Will Never See is, it's awesome. It's just as good as the debut. Maybe a little bit better in spots. Tough call because both those albums are killer.
And from a long-time commenter, simple but not so long name 6642 says, reads no long lists, to which he says, no, that's a bad time. Forest of Equilibrium by Cathedral is the final answer. Now, once again, I haven't heard this because I'm a piece of shit, but I'm going to let Nick take over.
Man, all right. First up, I'm still not a fan of Lee Dorian's vocals. I know they're an acquired taste, but he sounds like he's some weird carnival barker that's just trying to scare kids. But I like Carnival Bazaar, oddly enough, because I made that reference. That one, I don't know, I feel like the songs gel a little bit more. I like Forest of Equilibrium. I do think that debut is good, though, but I gotta go with Carnival Bazaar. I think Utopian Blaster was probably the first song I heard by Cathedral. I was like, dude, that's pretty cool. And then I found out that Tony Iommi was actually on that song. I was like, well, that could be why, too.
Yeah.
That might be a slight factor in there. But yeah, so I'm going to go with disagree on that. But, you know, it's been a while since I've sat down and, like, listened to, like, all of Cathedral, because that's a lot of albums.
Next from Pusrot3942.
What's going on?
Yo, we have Mortician with Hacked Up for Barbecue.
He's right. And I'm right because I agree with him.
I like Chainsaw Dismemberment, but whatever. There's not really a wrong answer with Mortician either, I'll be honest.
Some of the later ones aren't as good, I will say. There's maybe like a wrong answer in there.
The production suffers, obviously, but...
Dude, Hacked Up for a Barbecue is fucking classic, dude. 2/3 the heaviest, nastiest riffs you'll ever hear. 1/3 movie samples.
Next up, we have Negfortiv, or Negative, whatever you want to say, with Decapitated's debut album, Winds of Creation. I have to disagree and say it's Nility.
It's Nility, or The Negation. Man, dude. I mean, it could even be Organic Hallucinosis. I love that album. I know that one's kind of divisive with people. I love Winds of Creation, and the fact that they were, like, super young when they did that. Like, that's just insane.
Yeah, VTech was 17, dude. Get out of here. Don't get me wrong, I love early Decapitated, but for me it'll always be Nility, mostly because of Spheres of Madness. But I mean, that whole record whoops ass.
I mean, that's like one of my favorite breakdowns ever.
So, good choice, but I have to disagree.
Yeah, Decapitated rules, though.
Next we have Birdmaster 11, not Birdmaster 10, Birdmaster 11.
Birdmaster 10 wasn't available.
Yep, just don't get this confused, you guys. We have My Bitter End with A Thin Line Between Heaven and Here. I've never heard it.
I have only heard their second album, The Renovation, which I think is pretty solid. Like, it's like technical metalcore, deathcore. I don't know. It's kind of like a hazy line in between there. It was pretty good, but I can't say anything on the debut being better. So I'm just going to go with Undecided.
Yep.
Yeah, good deep cut there.
Yeah. Next up, we have Andreas Lidgeborg. I'm sorry if I butchered that. 1428 that says Dark Throne with Soulside Journey. I have to agree. That was my number one from the ranking, so I have to agree. Nick?
I love that album. I think it's an absolutely underrated death metal classic that people just kind of overlook because it's Dark Throne. You don't expect death metal from them. But I still love A Blaze in the Northern Sky. That's still my favorite Dark Throne album.
That was a good album, too.
Riffs, man. But, I mean, dude, Soulside Journey is awesome. And, again, often overlooked. If you have not jammed that album, if you just thought, like, oh, yeah, Dark Throne's just, you know, the black metal band or whatever the hell they are now. They just worship Celtic Frost riffs and never tour. There's more to their discography than that. Check out that debut. It's awesome.
Then from Rusty Darlington, we have Gorgoroth with Pentagram. I am not a Gorgoroth fan.
I'm not a Gorgoroth fan either. I can't really say on that one, so I'm just going to go undecided. I know that Gall is great for interviews because he always says something creepy.
I mean,
immensely quotable. All he had to do was say Satan once and he became a meme.
And then from the 15569, we have 6 Feet Under with Haunted. I mean,
I agree. It sounds like an obituary album with Chris Barnes on vocals.
I like True Carnage, but I won't dismiss Haunted. Haunted was a damn good album, and I just like True Carnage because of Torture Killer. So that's not really a reason to say I like that album better than Haunted. Haunted is a pretty damn good record.
It's a good record. I will say that. I'm just, not much of a fan of anything else that happened after that album. And I'll still say that it is kind of a collection of Alan West's leftover obituary riffs that obituary were just like, we're good.
Beanie Dogs says Nuclear Assault, Game Over.
Oh, I like that debut, but I think Survive is a bit of an improvement, so I'm going to disagree. I'm probably going to lean more towards Survive. I love early Nuclear Assault. Like, all the way up to, like, Handle with Care, too. Like, Handle with Care is absolutely awesome album, but yeah, Game Over is a killer debut. I like Survive just a little bit more.
I haven't heard it, so I have to go and disagree. Yeah, I suck. Next up, we have Patrick Lanson, who says, Nosum with Inhale Exhale.
Ugh. Dude, I love that entire discography, so that one's tough. That is like a really tough pick, because I think their last album, Shift, though I don't think it's as popular with fans, because, you know, they kind of, I mean, it was still a grindcore album, but there was like a lot of other stuff on there. There was a little bit more groove, a little bit more atmosphere, but, God, I'm going to go Undecided, just because all those albums are amazing. Like, if you love one Nosum album, I think by default you love the other three.
I will also go Undecided in that case, just because it's like the creme de la creme of grindcore. Like, how do you pull that apart? How do you pick something, you know, that has such an awesome discography? How do you say this is the best when they're all pretty fucking good?
Well, one of these days we'll probably do like a mini ranking, retro review or something like that.
One of these days, Nosum will appear in a retro review ranking thing, and then we'll talk about it more then. But I'm going to say Undecided as of now. But at the same time, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean...
You picked an awesome album.
Next from Gruh, 10,006, we have Deicide with Deicide.
I gotta go Legion. I love Legion. That's like, well, the first Deicide album I ever heard. They're both awesome. You can't go wrong with those first three.
Legion was also the first one I ever heard, and we've seen them do it live a bunch, and Legion is such a banger of an album. One day we'll get to rank Deicide too, and we'll talk more about it then.
Again, like 1A and 1B.
Yep.
And possibly 1C in there too.
Yep. Next up, sorry if I butcher this, Matage Toss. I'm really sorry. Matage Toss 2447 says Devin Townsend with Ocean Machine. Now, I'll just go ahead and answer this myself quickly. I didn't even get into Devin Townsend until we saw him play with Between the Buried and Me back in 2015. So my introduction to Devin Townsend was 100% Transcendence. I have gone back a little bit, but I've never heard Ocean Machine. I love Devin Townsend. I'm going to say that as a whole anyway. But I haven't heard Ocean Machine, so I have to state with Undecided or, you know, neutral or whatever.
I got into Devin Townsend with, you know, Strapping Young Lad. Like, Strapping Young Lad's absolutely amazing.
Well, right.
Yeah.
I should make a caveat. I've heard Strapping Young Lad. I didn't hear the solo work until Transcendence.
But when it came down to his solo work, like, I love Ocean Machine. I think it's fucking brilliant. Same thing with Teria. I love that album too. But my go-to Devin Townsend album is Ziltoid. It's so gloriously dumb and fun and catchy. I love that album like I love 80s movies in terms of just oh wow, this is familiar, stupid, just fun. I just love that album. So yeah, I gotta go with Ziltoid on that one. But Ocean Machine is a beautiful album, and what an amazing way for Debbie to start on a solo career. Because God, man, that dude is just a fantastic musician.
It's like watching Chopping Mall.
Yeah. Dude, when that chick gets lasered in the head.
Yeah, dude, for real.
It's great.
Yep. From Beast of Man 77, we have Ozzy with Blizzard of Oz.
I might be a bigger fan of Diary of a Madman. There's just more songs there that I just really get into. But I mean, Blizzard of Oz is a killer album.
I have to say the same thing. Diary of a Madman is pretty killer. Blizzard of Oz is also pretty killer. It's another 1A, 1B thing.
Dude, Ultimate Sin's awesome too. I don't know. Ozzy had a lot of really good early albums, so it's really tough. But Blizzard of Oz is damn good. I don't know that. Yeah, I'm gonna go with disagree on that one. I just think there's a couple that might outdo it.
Next, from an actual buddy of ours, the Metal Meltdown official.
What's up, Robert?
Robert, we love you, man. We have Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. He says, perfectly balanced sleaze and grit and great hooks and influence from across the rock spectrum of time, and then everything after was jumbled, inconsistent, and pretentious.
Yes. And I agree with the second part of that, for sure. Now, here's the thing, and I don't know if many people on the channel know this. I don't like Guns N' Roses. I didn't like Guns N' Roses when it was cool to like Guns N' Roses back, when people were like wearing super tight jeans and Aquanet hair and all that shit. Like, I was just like, dude, I hate the sound of this dude's voice. Like, I really do. The caveat here is I will agree that Appetite is their best album because the competition is not very fierce there. Like, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, you could have just done Use Your Illusion and, because there's like one album worth of good material between two albums there. And by good, I mean, it's okay for what it is. I've never been a fan of Guns N' Roses, so take it away.
I've never been a fan either, like never. And I remember being in the first grade, and my buddy Grant was huge into Guns N' Roses. That's weird. I haven't thought about that in fucking forever. He was huge into Guns N' Roses, and I jammed it then and didn't like it, and that was in 1987. So. Yeah, I've never been a Guns N' Roses fan. Like, I understand, once again, that they have their place in history and blah, 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 but I've never been a fan. So I've never actually sat down and listened to an entire album because I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. I mean, I've listened to Appetite, and you think it's good for what it is, but Axl sounds like someone swinging a cat around by the tail. I don't like it. I do like the original album art, though, for Appetite. Like, I mean, I understand why they didn't go with it, but I thought it was pretty slick art. But you were right. We agree with you that is their best offering, and that's about it. Like, we'll agree there, but I don't like it. I don't think it's that good.
We'll agree, but the buck stops there.
Pretty much it.
Yep. From JV Schmidt 7846, Morgoth with Cursed.
He is right. That album is absolutely amazing. Competition, again, not that steep in that discography because they kind of fell off. Those first two EPs, amazing. Cursed, amazing. And then we get this weird period in between. And then they had a comeback album and then broke up. Cursed is awesome. It's pretty much death worship. Like, it sounds like Germany's version of Leprosy. I love Leprosy, and I love Cursed.
I've never heard it. Once again, shame on me. Whatever. I feel stupid when we do these things sometimes, but I mean, you can't hear it all. I've heard thousands and thousands of bands, so I'm not gonna like shit on my street cred, but I've never heard it. Next, from the Haiku Guy 7006, and first off, the Haiku Guy 7006. You're fucking up right there, man. That's 9. And if I get into reading your comment, Mudvayne's LD50 would not even, like, you're way off there too. I don't get it. But you are correct. Mudvayne's LD50, I adore that album. I love it. That is my favorite Mudvayne album, hands down. I still jam that record to this day.
Yeah, I 100% agree as well. That's their best album. It's got the Berber ding. But no, like, that album's actually incredible, dude. Prod is probably one of my favorite Mudvayne songs.
Pharmacopoeia.
Pharmacopoeia is
that
awesome.
That song rules. That whole record, Nothing to Gain. I have no qualms with that album whatsoever. Say what you will about Mudvayne, but that record rules. Joshua Scott 3428 says, Violence, Eternal Nightmare, top 10 best thrash records ever for me.
I mean, I'll probably agree. Like, all right, I'm not a fan of Sean Killian's vocals, like I never have been, but I'm a fan of Rob Flynn's riffs. And that album is flat out savage. Like, it is flying at all times. But, Sean's very, I don't know what they're like, yells. I don't get his vocal delivery, but I do like that album just in terms of the just flat out intensity of it. So I would probably agree with that one.
Once again, I've never listened to much Violence. We're gonna have a whole talk about this later. I'm just gonna say, like, all right, fine. I've never heard that much Violence, but I am a fan of Rob Flynn's riffs, and by proxy, that would make me a fan of that album. But once again, we're going to have another discussion towards the end of this video. Jaden Perriam says, Testament, The Legacy.
I can't agree with it.
I can't agree.
I love The New Order, and Souls of Black is still my favorite Testament album. I know that's kind of like a dark horse in the race, but I love every song on there. The lead work, I think, is some of Alex Skolnick's best. Like, every lead on there is amazing. And I have legit worn out my original copy of Souls of Black to the point where it barely plays anymore. It's starting to skip on 7 Days of May, which is like one of my favorite tracks on there. So I'm probably going to have to get the reissues that are coming out soon from Nuclear Blast, because they're reissuing like all of Testament's old stuff. So, yeah, I disagree, but The Legacy is an absolute banger of an album. Dude, Over the Wall alone.
And I will say, I also disagree in that Souls of Black is a banger, but I will say I remember from ranking Testament. Testament is pretty fucking consistent across the board. That was a hard one to rank because a lot of Testament is so very, very good. So to pick a favorite is really difficult to do. I don't actually remember off the top of my head what my number one is. It may have been The New Order. I'm not 100%, but I also know it wasn't The Legacy. So, yeah, well, I'll just go undecided on that one. A Simple Man 4845 says, Ahab with Call of the Wretched. I'm going to come out and say this. I wasn't a big Ahab fan until we saw him at MDF. Oh. I am now a gigantic Ahab fan, but I need to go back and listen to, like, everything. So, Nick?
I probably agree here. That was my first Ahab album, and I was completely blown away. Like, that was just such a dark, haunting, just lumbering album. I wasn't even into Funeral Doom when I got that, and that may have been like kind of my, like ushering into that whole subset. I just love that album. I think it's Ghost of the Glencarrig. Oh man, it's the one with the cool like octopus on the cover. I think it's Ghost of the Glencarrig or something like that. Or Boats of Glencarrig, or I don't know, something like that. That's also awesome. It's like kind of like 1A, 1B there. I love both of those. I love most of what that band has put out. Their last album was awesome too. I'm gonna go with I agree though. Call the Wretched Sea is amazing.
And now from Yommers. What's up, Yommers? We have Mercyful Fate with Melissa. I am not a Mercyful Fate fan.
Neither am I. All right. I'm not a fan of King Diamond's vocals still. Like, most people know that.
Correct.
But I will say the music's awesome. And I can't 100% say if Melissa's the best album because, I don't know, Don't Break the Oath is way up there too. And, like, honestly, this is one to field for Shred because he would probably definitely clarify where he stands in there more decidedly.
Yes.
I can say that I know amongst fans of this band, it is a debate between the first two. And I'm undecided because I just really need to sit down and listen to the entire discography because I know one day we're going to rank them because Shred's going to pick them.
Yep, it'll happen. And we'll talk more about it then, I guess. That's what I'll say. So undecided just because I am not a Mercyful Fate fan. But saying that too, I wasn't a fan of a lot before this channel, so there's that too. Live for Death Metal 4652 says The Sword, Age of Winners. I love that record. I would have to agree, but that's a tough agreement because I love The Sword.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Gods of the Earth is so good too, and I love Warp Riders. Like, that is a fantastic, catchy album. Dude, this band has such a way with riffs. Like, every riff they write is just infectious as hell. And the first three albums are prime example of it because I can't think of a riff I didn't like on those first three albums for damn sure. But Age of Winners is where I started. I got that as a recommendation from my buddy who ran a record shop, or at least, he runs a record shop now, but it's a different record shop. Anyway. He recommended it. I saw the cover. I was like, dude, this looks stony as fuck. And I was like, dude, it is.
It is, yeah.
And yeah, I jammed the dog shit out of that
I did
album.
too. I wore out that. I had to buy another CD. I wore out that CD.
Dude, so. Iron Swan. Oh my god. Yeah, I have a love affair with that album, so I'm gonna agree. It's amazing.
Jason B 328 says Anaal Nathrakh, the Codex Necro.
Go ahead, say it.
I wasn't a fan of this band either until we saw them at MDF in 2019. I haven't sat down and listened to very many records. I'm a broken record at this point in the game on this thingy we're doing here.
That's my least favorite album by Jamin John. I'm a broken record.
Yep,
that's
I'm
his
a broken
debut
record.
too.
Yeah, that's my debut. So there you go. Listen to that. Whatever.
I didn't get into their earlier stuff until much later. I got into them with Asketon. And that album is vicious as hell, but you could say that about all of their albums. But honestly, here lately, I'm kind of a bigger fan of Endarkenment, the last album they put out. That album, I don't know, it just captures everything they do well. Like, it is still just vicious and grindy and blasty and it's an ugly album, but it's also beautiful because Dave Hunt's ability to switch from shrieking his guts out to singing epically. Dude, it's like strapping young lad on bath salts. It's amazing. Which that sounds probably terrifying to some people, but I don't care. I'm going to disagree for now because I'm still, very high on Darkman. I still jam that album every now and then, but I got to go back and listen to some of the older stuff again. Like, I have it. It's good, but I think the band got better as they went on.
Bart Klanowski, 43, says, Hate Eternals conquering the throne. I disagree. My take is, I think Upon Desolate Sands, I think their last one is probably their best one.
Yeah, honestly, I'd have to agree that Upon Desolate Sands, I think, is their most, concise, just, that's the album I think of now when it comes down to Hate Eternal. I love that debut. I think, actually, their first 2 albums are just solid, just nasty, kind of Morbid Angel worship. I mean, they were pretty close to that. I think they kind of diversified their sound a little bit later on, but production was kind of an issue, especially with Fury in the Flames. That is the muddiest death metal album I think I've heard.
And I still like I Monarch too, and even though the production on there is not the greatest either, I think that's a banger of a record too. So I'm gonna have to disagree, but Conquering the Throne is a good album.
Yeah, it'd be probably top 3 for me in terms of Hate Eternal, I think.
Someday we'll rank that discography too, and we'll talk more about it. Rodney Barr, 5735.
What's up, Rodney?
Says Suffocation, Effigy of the Forgotten.
It's my number 2.
Yep.
It's a solid number 2.
It's up there.
Pierce from Within.
But
Borderline perfect death metal album.
Yep.
Dude, it's a tough call. It's again, a 1A, 1B.
Yep.
There's so many damn good songs on both that one and Pierce from Within, which that was a tough choice when we ranked them. But yeah, I give a slight edge to Pierce from Within.
Yes, yep. I'm in that boat as well. Craze77 says Van Halen with Van Halen.
I agree. Honestly, most of my favorite songs are on that album, dude. Ain't Talking About Love. It's one of my favorite Van Halen riffs ever. That album is, I don't know, borderline perfect. Van Halen 2 is really good too. I still like Fair Warning. Women and Children First.
Yeah.
Dude, a lot of good stuff in those early Van Halen years.
Yeah, I like Van Halen. I like the first one for sure. OC Reactions 7843 says he'll just repeat Annihilator, Alice in Hell.
Agreed.
I actually listened to it shortly before we started this, and it is pretty damn good, so yeah.
My love of Annihilator is mostly about my love of Jeff Waters' riff writing. He's an amazing riff writer, amazing guitarist across the board, but a lot of the stuff after Never Neverland was a good follow-up, but it's not nearly as good as Alice in Hell. Yeah, there's a lot of diminishing returns there, sadly. But Alice in Hell is absolutely killer, dude. Burn Like a Buzzsaw Blade, probably one of my favorite Annihilator songs, dude. Just riffs. It's absolutely a fantastic listen. And except for Never Neverland, that's the next closest, and it's still, there's some distance between the two.
Oddly enough, my introduction to Annihilator wasn't through listening to an Annihilator album. It was the that All-Star Roadrunner thing. Joey Jordison played on that track, and I was like, man, this is fucking awesome. And then I went back and listened to more Annihilator because of that track. Vadim Karhu says Black Sabbath with Black Sabbath.
I love Black Sabbath, but I would probably take Paranoid Master Reality in Volume 4 over the debut. In fact, I know I did.
Right, exactly.
Dude, the first Black Sabbath is amazing. The song Black Sabbath, that's the birth of doom metal there.
Yes.
But I think they got better in terms of songwriting and, being more than just almost kind of a heavy blues band, because that's the big chunk of that album is just heavy blues rock. As you get further in, it starts to develop more of a metallic identity.
Yeah.
And Master of Reality is dude, if we were just talking about stoner metal and stuff, that's Desert Island album. I need it.
Black Sabbath 4 was number 1 for me when we did the ranking, and
beautiful album.
I still stand by that opinion. I'm not going to say hey, fuck you, you're wrong, because that's not the case. You still made a good pick.
Yeah.
It's just not my favorite. Exhumed Corpse says Immolation, Dawn of Possession. Great album.
Amazing album.
Not my number 1 pick.
Oh, dude.
Close to a World Below.
Yep. Close to World Below, dude. That's the GOAT of Immolation albums. But, I mean, let's be honest, that entire discography is amazing.
Yep, from start to finish. You can do no wrong with Immolation.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. Pero4629 says Gorguts considered dead. Me personally, I say Colored Sands. However, this is considered dead. Is still a great record.
Oh, dude. For me, it's Erosion of Sanity. Like, that's almost like the perfect transitional album between the more technical, progressive stuff and their flat-out leprosy worship. Like, I love Considered Dead. It's a leprosy album. Like, it sounds like leprosy. And while I like it, I feel like they got more of their own identity as they went on, and I think that really started with Erosion of Sanity. You know, I love Colored Sands, too. From Wisdom to Hate is awesome too, and I'm looking forward to hearing some new stuff here soon, hopefully.
User XC7SH4FB8G says Thy Art is Murder, The Adversary. I'm not the world's biggest Thy Art is Murder fan. I've seen them actually live. I've heard a couple albums here and there, but I'm not a big enough fan. Even what I heard, I wasn't a big enough fan to be able to be like, yeah, this record over this record. So
I've seen them 3 times. They're entertaining. Like, again, I'm not like the biggest deathcore fan, but I mean, in terms of what I've heard and in terms of what I own, I only own Holy War, and I do think that album's pretty decent. But I really wasn't that impressed with the first one. Like, at that point, it was just a lot of, like, oversaturated deathcore at the moment, and it really did not stand out much from the pack, in my opinion.
Yep. That's
just me, though.
CattyCats4 says Face Down Minefield. Once again, I've never heard it.
I've heard a couple of tracks from Face Down. I don't even know if it's from that album, because if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's the one that Marco Aro of The Haunted, that was the project that he initially left The Haunted to do and then came back to The Haunted. I don't know if that band's even still around anymore, because Marco seems like he's pretty content being in The Haunted again, and I'm really content with him being in The Haunted again. So yeah, I can't say one way or the other on that one.
Just Another Heavy Metal Maniac, what's up, says Vital Remains, Let Us Pray.
I do think that debut is absolutely awesome. However, De-Christianize is, dude, like, that album is unreal.
Yeah.
I love that album. Yeah, so I'm going to have to disagree, even though, I mean, you still picked the Vital Remains album, and that's pretty much a win there for me.
Yeah, De-Christianize blew my mind the first time I heard it, and it continues to. Every time I turn that record on, I'm just like, man,
dude,
this is something else.
So damn heavy.
Oh my God. So, yeah, I'm going to have to disagree, but you did pick a banger. Small Craigie, Adremelech with Psychostasia. All right, so once again, admittedly, I've never heard this, but when Nick told me what it sounded like, I've kind of heard it.
I've heard a bit of it on YouTube. I don't own a copy because their albums, from what I gather, are a little bit harder to find. I haven't been looking in a while. I think I was looking at Discogs. That might have been my mistake. Like, oh, you want a copy of Adremelech's debut? Sure, $4,000. Sounds completely unreasonable. But I know that they're Finnish death metal, and their debut, at least from what I heard, is on par with Sentence debut, Amorphous debut, Convulse's debut, a litany of other awesome Finnish death metal debuts. I haven't heard the other 2 albums, though, so I can't really say. But, I mean, if I even went by, like, the Metal Archives ratings, it looks like that's probably the best one. But I'm going to go undecided just because I haven't heard the other 2. But from what I've heard of the debut, it's pretty awesome.
And I'm going to go undecided because apparently I suck at this game, so whatever. Wyatt's Metal Life. What up, Wyatt?
What's up, man?
Death with Scream Bloody Gore.
I love Scream Bloody Gore. I love all of Death's albums. Who am I kidding? I'm a bigger Leprosy fan. Leprosy's the GOAT for me.
And I'm a bigger Human fan. But, you know, we've all got our fandoms. I mean, it's not a bad album.
No.
Death doesn't really have a bad album except for one.
I mean, I don't think that's even a bad album either.
It's just not.
It doesn't matter. Like, it's one of those discographies where, like, the fans could be a fan of, like, one particular era and not the other. In fact, we run into that more often than not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm more of a Leprosy fan, though.
Faustian Spirit 573 says, maybe slightly controversial considering the hugely influential album this band came up with a year later, but I stand in my opinion that Welcome to Hell is the best Venom album.
Honestly, my favorite is probably At War with Satan. And I don't know if that's a controversial pick, but I think that was the one they finally got the production right. And, dude, they just wrote some absolute bangers in that album. But, I mean, Welcome to Hell, I dig it. I mean, dude, if I had a nickel for every time I listened to a Venom-inspired band, I would have, like, a lot of nickels, is what I'm saying. Dude, Midnight essentially bases almost all of their stuff off of their love of Venom, and they do it really well. But yeah, I kind of like At War with Satan just a bit more. You know, those first two are fun. The production's still pretty awful, but At War with Satan I think is probably my current favorite.
Guess what my answer is? Just take a guess. Just if you were to watch any part of this video and whatnot, you'd be able to probably make a guess about what I'm about to say next. You can take a guess if you want. I'll give you a moment. Crickets. Fucking whatever. Yeah, I've never heard it, so there we are. There you have it. So, Undecided. Boy, this game's fun, huh? You guys having fun? I'm having fucking fun.
I'm having fun.
I know Nick's having fun. Everybody knows you're having fun. If I had a nickel for every time Nick was having fun, I'd have a shitload of nickels. Jose the Hedgehog says, I was going to do a ton, but I actually read the entire post, so I contained myself. Thank you for that.
We appreciate that.
Yep. Anywho, his pick is Life of Agony, River Runs Red. He also says, P.S. You guys rule, as always. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that.
And once again, I will state, though, that you are correct.
Yeah, you're correct. I like a lot of Life of Agony stuff. Like, I like a lot of their later stuff that's come out. I actually even liked Soul Searching Sun, which is, more of an alternative rock album, but it still had some good songs on it. But yeah, River Runs Red is a standout. And yeah, like it kind of, brought a lot of melody to the hardcore scene.
Yep.
And great riffs all over that.
Yes,
I
100%.
I dig that album. It's absolutely awesome.
I do too. In fact, I still have my OG copy of that album. So
I don't think my copy's OG. It might be a reissue.
Mine's straight up OG.
First one I think I ever got was Ugly, though, so yeah.
And Death for All 82 says, Ratt, Out of the Cellar. I haven't heard much Ratt, but I have heard this album. Round and Round is a beast.
It's a great song, dude. It's catchy as hell. I probably agree. It's probably their most well-known album. It's the only one that I've honestly really listened to. So
me too. So
if I'm being fair, but I mean, yeah, it's got some killer songs on it, and rest in peace, Tanya Katan. Man, she was a big crush of mine back in the '80s too.
Oh man,
Bachelor Party rules.
Yeah. And this, again, is probably another question that I think would be well fielded by Shredlord.
Probably.
But, we may get there, too. We may get to a Ratt ranking.
Who knows?
Who knows what's going to happen? Nadine, the Rescue Hound, says, Kalmah was Swamp Lord. I'm going to agree. I've jammed the shit out of that album. I love that album a lot.
Honestly, I would probably agree, too. Like, I mean, early Kalmah, I think, is really good. Like, I mean, their later stuff, I think, is pretty solid too, but that one and Seventh Symphony always kind of stuck out to me as just like incredible albums. In terms of like Seventh Symphony being like a later one, but yeah, Swamp Lord's pretty gnarly. I dig that one, even with all the synths and everything. It's still very Finnish melodic death metal, and they love their synths. It's still like really riffy as hell.
Yes, it is. I always had a problem with music like this because of the synths too, but I dated a girl for a long time that loved the hell out of this record, so I've heard this record nonstop over and over and over again, and over time I really grew to love it, and I don't even mind the synths that much.
Yeah.
It's crazy to say because I'm a very picky synth fan, but
I got in the same time I got into Children of Bodom, so like it felt like kind of a natural thing. Like, listen, if I can tolerate the synths in Children of Bodom, I can do this too.
Yeah. December Soul is official. If you are December Soul's, cool.
I'm a December Soul.
Right? Yeah, he's definitely a December Soul. Well, he has no soul.
I don't have a soul.
Let him fool you.
I sold it for an awesome music collection. I think I won.
I think you did too. This is the only time you're going to hear me admit that ever. Anyway, gonna say a weird one, but Volume 1 by CKY is in my eyes their best release. I am not a CKY fan.
I love CKY. I still, alright, mostly just like the earlier stuff. I love Volume 1. Of course, 96, Quite Bitter Beings. Like, dude, that's still, like, the most infectious song they probably ever wrote. Rio Bravo's awesome, too. Disengage the Simulator. But, as an overall album, I gotta go with Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild. I love that album, cover to cover. Well, alright, maybe the ballad at the end's kind of odd. But, I don't know, as a more complete album, I like that one. Volume 1 still feels like kind of a compilation, like a collection of songs that still maybe needed a little bit of work, maybe outside of 96 White Bitter Beings, because that song was just instantly catchy. But yeah, I disagree, but good poll, dude. CKY is awesome.
Sir Ryan Royce says Down with Nola, and I agree.
Yes.
I 1000% agree.
Goated.
Don't get me wrong, I like Down 2 and even some crap off of Down 3, but Nola is a beast. There's not a goddamn thing wrong with that record.
Yeah, dude, honestly, like one of the best supergroup debuts ever. Like, it's incredible. Every single song.
Bury Me in Smoke is probably one of my top 10 favorite songs ever.
Underneath Everything.
Oh, dude.
Lifer.
Yep, Lifer.
Dude, so much riff talent on that fucking album, dude.
Yep. I love that album. It's great. You are 100% correct. Josh L8474 says Druk with Forgotten Legends. I have to be honest, I haven't heard much Druk outside of what we've reviewed, and I didn't really dive into their back catalog simply because we reviewed 100,000 things after that, and I kind of forgot. But from what I did hear from that band I liked, I just have to go with Undecided because I haven't heard that, but I do like the band. So.
Yeah, I didn't get into their earlier stuff until much later. My first album that I got by them was A Furrow Cut Short, and I really enjoyed that. That's why I kept getting Druk albums. I like their style of like atmospheric, a very, it's kind of folky, but I don't know. I just like their style of black metal. It's not just like, blast and drone. Like there's a lot of different dynamics to it. I don't know. I can't say the debut's the best just because I've heard stuff after that I really like. Like, I can't remember the name of them because they all have like a name in Cyrillic, and for some odd reason, my brain keeps focusing on those letters, which look like keys on a scientific calculator, and I can't pull any other titles out of my head right now. But A Furrow Cut Short, I'll probably say, at least at this point, I might like that more than the debut, but it's been a while since I've gone back and jammed them.
Vince Drotos.
Sounds like a Bond villain. It's
it
great.
Does. Dude, that's awesome. Demolition Hammer with Tortured Existence. I've seen Demolition Hammer. That was the first time I really listened to Demolition Hammer. That was in 2022 at MDF. Put on a killer set. I did jam this album a little bit before we got in and sat down to do this, and I will say that it's a killer record. I, once again, can't say because here I am, Mr. Odd Man Out, who apparently doesn't listen to any albums that anybody fucking picks, because what fun would that be, right? Just sit down here and just be stupid, but, I mean, it's a good album. I just can't say that it's a better album than any other album because I'm stupid. So here we are.
44 Caliber Brain Surgery was the first song I ever heard by this band. It was like, oh my God, this is absolutely awesome. And I love Torture Existence, but Epidemic Violence exists too. And they're practically equal. Like, they are practically equal in how badass and riffy and thrashy and violent they are. So I'm going to have to say Undecided between those two. There's no other competition there, however, because Time Bomb's just garbage. I don't like that album. They went like full-on groove metal, and no. But yeah, I can't. It's almost impossible to pick between those two. Like, they're both like 4.5 star albums in my opinion.
Robert Sparling 917. Hello,
Hi, Robert.
How are you? Says Autopsy, Severed Survival. I'm just going to dive on the Broken Record train, whatever. Autopsy has been a very recent thing for me, too. Of course, we've reviewed now a couple albums, which I really dig the shit out of. And, I've seen Autopsy and, whatever. I will get to it eventually just because I love Autopsy. And all of Autopsy's records are actually on my phone, so I've probably heard a bunch off of it. Nick did jam some of it for me before we came down here, and it is a pretty goddamn good record. But I am a pretty big fan of Autopsy and working through getting their discography anyway. Eventually, one day, we'll probably rank that, and then we'll have this discussion. But I'm going to go Undecided. I do like everything I've heard from Autopsy, though, so whatever.
He clearly haven't listened to Shit Fun yet. Anyway, this was an easier question years ago because the last two albums have been, like, honestly on par with their earlier stuff. Man. This was the album I got into Autopsy with. So, at this point, before we actually rank them, and I might change my mind. Man, because that's tough, because even Mental Funeral is just greasy and filthy too. Ah, dude. Robert, good one. You know what? I'm going to go with Undecided. I'm going to go with Undecided because there's a lot of good albums. Like, I know which ones I don't like, that's for sure. They stand out. But the ones that I do like, I like a lot. So,
yep.
Yeah.
And I will say that too, man. The last two records, holy shit. The last record, especially.
Yeah.
God, that still hasn't left my playlist, to be honest.
It's amazing.
And it may not. Ethan R8942 says, As the Flower Withers by My Dying Bride.
Oh, I'm going to agree. I love that album. It's definitely one that stands out in their discography for being insanely heavy. Like, it's probably their most brutal, more death metal centric albums. I would say Forever People is like top 5 songs by My Dying Bride for me. And vocally, like, a lot different too. Like, you know, you don't get the woeful singing from Aaron, which his vocals sound like he did his takes immediately after putting down a cat on Christmas morning. That man is so morose, but it's perfect for what they do. But here, he's just brutal. Like, he is just growling his guts out, and fuck me, the riffs on this album are so damn good. I'm gonna agree, yeah.
I have not heard all of My Dying Bride. Not all of it. I've heard a lot of My Dying Bride, but not all of it. This record is pretty goddamn awesome. Granted, I like more of the morose My Dying Bride, but this record is just heavier than shit and really doesn't sound like a whole lot else in their discography. Like, this record kind of stands on its own 2 feet as just being a doomy, heavy bastard, so I will have to agree with you as well.
Yeah, I know, like, a lot of people love, like, Turn Loose the Swans, Angel in the Dark Water, or is it Dark Angel in the Water? Something like that. I don't know. I like that stuff, but there's something just about, like, the flat-out ferocity of that debut. It's just, love it.
Tyler1664 says, Acid Bath, When the Kite Strings Pop.
He is correct.
I mean, I've only ever heard the other one, so...
Well, Pagan Terrorism Tactics isn't a bad album. It's just kind of all over the place. I mean, it's not the same kind of all over the place that Acid Bath's debut is, because that is, there's death metal, there's sludge metal, there's like stony riffs, there's like kind of grungy stuff in there. That band is kind of their own thing, and that debut is a monster. The Blue, God, Finger Paintings, The Insane, Cheap Vodka. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Like, and I like Pagan Terrorism Tactics. I think that's Miller's favorite too.
I think it is too. Yep.
But yeah, no, he's wrong. It's When the Kite Stream Pops.
Real Japivic 8258 says Emperor in the Nightside Eclipse.
I gotta agree. I like Anthems to the Welcome at Dusk. That's probably my number 2, but dude, Nightside, that was the first thing I got. I heard Inno Satana on a Century Media sampler, and that might have been like one of my earliest exposures to black metal. And yeah, it blew me away. Like, it was like, dude, this is absolutely evil as shit. I love it. And I got that album, and yeah, I'd probably say that's probably my favorite. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
Y'all know me in black metal. We're getting there. I'm just picking away at fucking really everything right now. So while I'm not there yet, I'm sure that'll cross my ears eventually here. I'll just put it like that. Shania West, I'm just going to say it that way. Shania West 8757 says, Mortal Sin, Mayhemic Destruction.
Agreed. I mean, well, yeah, he hasn't heard it yet. That's kind of a theme. But I really like that album. I think I only have the follow-up to it, which I thought was good, but that first one, that's Australian Metallica. Like, that's Australia's maybe Red Lightning. Like, it's really similar, like, vocally, riff-wise. It's catchier than hell. I just haven't heard much else past the follow-up, which I thought was good, but didn't match up to that debut, that's for sure.
I'll get there. You don't realize how much you suck till you get on the internet and do a discussion chat, and then you're like, man, I know nothing. So whatever. Maybe my credibility is gonna drop after these. I don't know. I don't care. Whatever. Here we are. So I'm just gonna sit over here and eat shit because that's where I'm at. Thank you. Jamie O'Brien 7754 says ass suck. I don't know the title of that record.
I've been looking for at least like a compilation of their first two. I think they only have 2 albums. That first one is legendary. Like, that's like top tier death grind. I've listened to it on YouTube, and for whatever reason, the name escapes me. It might just be Assück. But either way, I'd have to agree based on what I've heard, and there's very little in the way of Assück's material out there from what I gather. In terms of full lengths, that's for damn sure. So, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and agree. It's killer death grind.
I'm going to go ahead and agree too. I've heard this, but I haven't heard anything else. Loyal G. What up, G? Sorry, that's stupid. Animosity's first album, Shut It Down, is an absolute banger and is the best one in their opinion.
I gotta disagree because I love the album Empires. That album is vicious. Like, they kind of have this thing where they managed to do like hardcore and death metal without it coming across as deathcore. And props to them because they did this like kind of around the time that deathcore was taken off, because it really does stand out. Yeah, I gotta go with Empires because Empires is just savage. Like, I've heard a bit of the debut. It's pretty good. But yeah, I like that second album a bit more.
Never heard it. I'm going to, from now on, I think I'm just going to sit over here and read a book and just interject lightly at times. Reading the books. Yeah.
Probably write that band down so I can listen to it later so I won't be such a tremendous loser online.
His words, not mine. He's paraphrasing, obviously.
I know,
yeah, I'm not. But,
don't worry. You will always be a tremendous
loser. We'll get there. We're going to retitle this segment, Jammin' John Sucks. Just write whatever you want. And I'm just going to be over here just going, It's a great time. Thank you, everyone, for playing. Kyle McNeil, 3477, says, Faster Pussycat, self-titled debut.
I've never listened to that
I've never heard it. Most Pussycats are fast. I have one. He is a parkour champion. You're going to see him out there pretty soon.
I know the movie. Is that Faster Pussycat Kill 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 or whatever?
I know Tom Jones, What's New Pussycat.
Yeah.
That's about where I'm at.
I know of this band. I think I could like confuse them with Bango Tango for a while. There's a lot of weird names out there for bands. But yeah, I've never actually listened to it. I know that they were hair metal more than likely, and I really can't say. So sorry.
Remember Beginning says Atheist. Piece of Time comes to mind. What a debut. All right, here's my take on Atheist. I recently just got into Atheist not that long ago. Saw them at MDF. They blew my mind. It was one of the most magical experiences I think I've had in quite some time at a show. If you saw me there, I stood there with my jaw dropped open for approximately 45 minutes and just...
He mentally nutted.
Yeah, dude, it was fucking crazy. So of course I went back and jammed all of Atheist, and I love every bit of it. But Unquestionable Presence, hands down, takes the cake for me. That record is god tier.
Yeah, no, that's my favorite. I love Piece of Time. It's probably the heavier of those first two. It's definitely got a lot of thrash in there. Definitely stuff that's pretty close to death metal too. I don't know. It's kind of somewhere in between. Ridiculously technical, but they tightened up everything on Unquestionable Presence and did even more. Like, there's just insane musicianship across the board on that album. It's truly a marvel. Like, I love the debut, but Unquestionable Presence, god tier.
And if I ever get a chance to see Atheist again, and I'm sure I will, wow. Snare Sounds Shit.
It's a great name.
I love it. Snare Sounds Shit 6037 says, Cryptopsy, Blasphemy Made Flesh.
No. I gotta go None So Vile. None So Vile it's been my favorite for a while.
Yep.
We just saw him perform all of Blasphemy Made Flesh, though, and
it was killer.
Dude, that's a killer album. But they, again, kind of like Atheist, they just tightened up everything and just did their sound better, and I think even added more.
Yep.
I think the riffs are catchier on None So Vile. The album art, I think, is iconic as fuck.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, I gotta go None So Vile.
I also have to go None So Vile, and don't get me wrong, we just saw Blasphemy Made Flesh, and it was amazing. They did a great job, even in spite of their horrible sound issues. But None So Vile is a beast of a record, and even though your choice is a good one, I can't agree with you. Any Solace 7976, and I don't know if the P is silent PP. Anyway, Any Stasis says Inanna with their debut Converging Ages. Never heard it.
I've never heard that one either. So, I don't know. I guess that's one to check out.
Yep, maybe. I'm going to check out a lot of things, as you've figured out by now. Lucas Struna 3962 says Hypocrisy with Penetralia.
Honestly, out of the early Hypocrisy albums, I go with, is it Obsculum Obscenum? I think that's right. I always screw up that album title, but out of the early Hypocrisy stuff, when it was like way more straightforward death metal, I go towards that one more, and then the rest of the Melodeath stuff, I have a lot of favorites in there. That's going to be a bitch to rank if we do. But yeah, I got to disagree with that one. That's a killer discography. That's a tough call.
I'm just sitting here. That's really what it is. I had nothing to do tonight, so I just came down here to sit and read usernames and read albums and just sit here. I've seen Hypocrisy. Crushed, absolutely crushed. Actually, Hypocrisy was one of the first death metal bands I ever saw live. Saw them with Suffocation. They were fucking killer. Did I go back and listen to any of their albums? No, because I'm stupid. So, we've already established that. We're gonna just, whatever.
Way to warm them over. You're doing great.
Here I am, again on my own, going down the only road I've never known.
That is not Hypocrisy.
It is not. Mean Metal Mike 666. We knew we were going to get to this eventually. Altars of Madness. Alright, so I can say this now. I said it on a live stream earlier, but I can say this now, so let's just go ahead and clear the air. Back when we ranked Morbid Angel, I was not the avid, first of all, Morbid Angel fan that I am now, nor was I really a fan of the earlier production and things like that. Since then, I've listened to probably 1,500 albums, and, your ears change, your tastes change. I can now say, having listened to Altars of Madness very recently, once again, that I actually really like Altars of Madness, and I was stupid, obviously, as everyone has seen, and ranked it at a number unfathomable, which makes total sense now that I saw my error, whatever. But I actually really, really, really enjoy Altars of Madness, and if I could go back in that ranking, it still would not be number one. Covenant obviously takes that spot.
Covenant's still my number one.
It still would not be number one, but I would move it up to number 3.
It's still my number 2.
Well, whatever. But it would not be 6. And there you have it. So Altars of Madness no longer at number 6, now at number 3.
There it is.
Yep, there it is. So suck on that. Brando Rayford says Dismember, like an ever-flowing stream. That is a badass album.
Yes.
That is a badass album.
Because I love death metal too. Like, that's a great album by them too, and aptly titled because it's 100% death metal. And yeah, but me being the giant HM2 slut and having Left Hand Path that high too, that's like my other left hand path. That's the right hand path. I don't know. Whatever. I gotta agree, dude. That's such an amazing album, like across board, possibly more melodic than Left Hand Path, like, because this band just has a knack for harmonies. But at the same time, crushing HM2 buzzsaw fucking everything. So yeah, no, I'm probably gonna agree. I don't see that really changing if we rank them, because that's the album that made me a fan. So.
And I'm gonna agree too. And if we rank them, we rank them, and then who knows what'll happen. But that is a damn good record.
Where Iron Crosses Grow, that's a really good one too. Fuck. I'm gonna stick with it.
Contaminate to Alleviate says Nimik, Mechanical Spin Phenomena.
God. That's tough, because I really like the second album, the Audio Injected Soul. I think that's the name of it. That first one's pretty good. Like, in terms of a band that, I mean, honestly, it seemed like they just flat out worshipped Fear Factory and Strapping Young Lad. I think they did a pretty solid job with that. That first album's pretty good, but I kind of like the Audio Injected Soul a little bit more.
I have heard it, but it's been a lot of years. It's another one of those at the time things where they were disgustingly close to Fear Factory, and I just kind of latched onto Fear Factory more. And when I heard Nimik, I was like, well, yeah, it's not bad, but I have Fear Factory.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of hard to really touch anything else when you get demanufacture. So, I'm going to state undecided simply because I had never really latched on to Nimik, although I have listened to it, and it was a long time ago, so that's where I'm at. I hear Black 74 says Cavalier Conspiracy Inflicted. This is such a difficult road to go down because there's so much that Max has done that I just gravitate to more. And Cavalier Conspiracy is kind of like all the pieces of Sepultura that we never got after Sepultura disbanded. That's kind of my take on Cavalier Conspiracy. So, like, I like Cavalier Conspiracy, and especially, like, the more recent re-recordings, too. Like, God damn it, those are awesome. But, I mean, as far as Cavalier Conspiracy, it stands, at least in that early era of them. I hadn't really latched onto them because I was still stuck on early Sepultura. That's my answer.
I'll agree. Honestly, that's probably my favorite of the bunch. I thought Blunt Force Trauma was pretty solid. Like, it definitely had more of a crossover thrash vibe to it, but with like little bits of death metal kind of flecked in there. That first one actually has Joe Duplantier on bass on that one. I don't know. Like, there's songs that really stand out, like the title track, Sanctuary. Sanctuary rips. I absolutely love like every single riff on that song. Yeah. I think that's a good pick.
Steve Ratcliffe 2181 says Metal Church with their subtitled album Metal Church.
That's a tough call because those first two albums, that one and The Dark, are both awesome. I probably gotta go with the debut though, so I'll probably agree here. Like, that one just edges out The Dark by like the most minuscule of margins. Tons of great riffs on there. David Wayne's vocals. That dude had some insane range. So yeah, I'm gonna agree.
I've listened to Metal Church here and there. We reviewed the last album. I kind of enjoyed it, if memory serves correct. But I haven't listened to enough Metal Church in its entirety and not their debut by any means. So I can't state anything there. But at least I've heard them. So right, I'm 1 for like 70 fucking 5. So we're doing great, right?
Fantastic.
This is a great time.
You're
having
doing good
a lot
things.
of fun. I'm doing such good things. Desislav Georgiev. I tried.
That seems.
I tried.
Close.
Demigod with Slumber for Sullen Eyes.
Agreed. That album absolutely rips. I've only heard snippets of the albums that followed, but they're not nearly as close to just how absolutely awesome that debut is. It's absolutely crushing.
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I've heard Demigod. I feel like I have. I can't tell you what I've heard, but I feel like I've heard Demigod.
It's probably that album.
It could be. But I at least I know I've heard this band. I just can't tell you whether or not I've heard this album. But it could be. It could be the case. So I'm 2 for 100. We're doing great. 44000. What's up, Edgar?
What's up, man?
Says Intestine Ballism and Anatomy of the Beast. We've been over this in the live streams. I've never heard this band.
Oh, dude, you're missing out.
But so many people in the live streams recently have said check out this band. So that is on my list of things to listen to. Only because, again, everybody has said jam this album. So I'm gonna get there. I have not gotten there, but I'm gonna get there.
I agree. I love that debut, and thank you, Edgar, for pointing me in the right direction to find those reissues too. Yeah, that is like some of the most savage melodic death metal I've ever heard. Like, it's brutal. Like, but they still managed to squeeze in all that melody, but it's just ridiculously heavy. Like that and Vehemence, dude. Yeah, that debut is amazing.
Metal Music Meltdown says Montrose, and there's nothing after that, and I don't know what that is.
I know that Sammy Hagar's like his first band. I've never actually sat down and listened to any Montrose. Like maybe a song, but I can't remember if I'm certain. Like in terms of Sammy Hagar, it started off with Sammy Hagar, like Can't Drive 55 and shit like that. This is a band I do need to check out at some point. I've heard a lot of good things, like just solid classic rock, proto metal. But yeah, I can't really say anything on this one.
Cultist3757 says Suicide Silence debut, which is the Cleansing, I believe. By the time Suicide Silence came out, I was pretty much on my way out of deathcore, and I remember hearing it and being like, yeah, it's alright. But I never really checked out anything after that because then I started down the death metal path and just kind of left deathcore behind for a while. So I can't really say that this is the best. It was a decent record, but I have nothing really in comparison to,
I will say that it is a super influential album in deathcore. Like it's one of the big ones. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Like I ended up getting into actually like the most recent one, Remember You Must Die. I thought that was a pretty solid album. And, dude, that thing's riffier than hell. That first one, it's heavy. It's got tons of brutal breakdowns and, you know, all the hallmarks of deathcore. But, you know, by then I think I already heard, like, Whitechapel's This Is Exile. I was like, yeah, I think this is more along my lines in terms of deathcore. Like that and, like, Through the Eyes of the Dead and shit like that. So I'm going to disagree because I like some of the later stuff, especially that last one from Suicide Silence. Like, that might be the first Suicide Silence. I was like, dude, that's actually really good.
Yeah. So, good pick, and I'm in the same boat. Like, I understand the hype behind this album, and I understand that it was influential and all that jazz. I wasn't really into it, and I was already kind of on my way out of that era of music. Explorer Fam says Critical Defiance and their debut album Misconception. These guys are the spiritual successors to Old School Slayer.
I haven't heard that debut, but
either.
I've heard their most recent one, The Search Won't Fall, and it's pretty awesome. I don't know if Slayer necessarily captured it because there's way more to their sound than just like Slayer riffs. There's a lot of dynamics, really cool instrumentals on the album too, but I can't say on the debut. So undecided on that one. I guess I have to hunt that down.
Adam Can't Fathom. That's really fun. I'm going to probably say that a bunch. Adam Can't Fathom. Adam Can't Fathom. Says Rotting Christ, Thy Mighty Contract. I have not heard much Rotting Christ either. Once again, I'm not going to explain it, but I have not heard much Rotting Christ.
Honestly, I might agree with that one. That's the one that I initially heard songs from. I was like, dude, this is pretty damn awesome. Like, just great riffy Greek black metal, and Greece just puts its own stamp on black metal in general.
Spencer Grady, 5501. What's going on, Spencer? Phantomas, and for the life of me, I cannot remember the name of the first Phantomas, and I've heard it. And it was pretty good, but I haven't really heard anything after that.
I can't say either. Like, I own so much Mike Patton stuff, but I don't own any Phantomas stuff. So I'm going to leave that one undecided for now.
Yep.
But, I mean, good pull there. Like, that's a fun one.
Yep. Mike Patton can really do no wrong in my eyes, to be honest.
My favorite vocalist.
Yeah. He's definitely up there. I don't know if he's my favorite, but he's definitely up there. And I've definitely jammed Phantomas, but I couldn't tell you much anything else. But that is a good pick. Owen Moreland says Death Angel with the Ultraviolence. Once again, for me, I've heard a bunch of Death Angel, but not that record.
Dude, that album absolutely rips. Like, they came storming out of the gates, and they were like teenagers when they dropped that thing. That was an easier pick before, they came out, because their last two albums, The Great Divide and Humanicide, are absolutely amazing albums. Oh man, I'm actually gonna go undecided on this one because I used to be like absolutely sure because that debut fucking rips. But like I said, their last two, even last three, I think have been some of their best work. So yeah, that one's more up in the air than I thought it'd ever be.
Ricksbite7438 says, not one I personally agree with, but I've seen plenty of people praise Fear Factory's death metal era over their later stuff. So what, Soul of a New Machine?
Soul of a New Machine.
If you really, really want to go back and get technical, it would be Concrete. I can't agree on that. Demanufacture will always take the cake. And for me, it's a toss-up between Demanufacture and Obsolete. That's a 1A, 1B for me, but Demanufacture rules.
See, I love Soul of a New Machine. I think that's an underrated death metal album in general. But Demanufacture, that's I would say like one of my favorite 90s metal albums, period. Across that entire decade.
Dude, Replica was the first song I ever heard by Fear Factory.
Mine might have been Self-Bias Resistor. I don't know. I love that entire album. Like it's a holy grail sort of like 90s metal album.
Average Video Game Enjoyer 3111 says Blood Incantation's debut, which would be Starspawn. I would have to say Hidden Hand of the Human Race. For me personally, Starspawn's a good record, but Hidden Hand of the Human Race I think is a brilliant masterpiece.
God, you know what? I'm going back and listening to Starspawn again not too long ago. I'm kind of leaning more towards Starspawn, so I think I'm going to agree there. That album's absolutely remarkable, especially the back half of it. The back half of it is flat out amazing. Not saying that the last one wasn't killer, and I'm sure this new one they're going to drop both 20-minute tracks. Who knows? But that first one is just absolutely killer.
B Caliber 7028 says, Stormtroopers of Death, speak English or die. You are correct.
Yes, yeah, there's no argument there.
Nope. Martin Napier 6286 says, Agalloch, Pale Folklore.
No, The Mantle. The Mantle is my favorite one. I love that album.
I've heard a handful of Agalloch. I have not sat down and listened to a full album, but I've heard a handful of Agalloch.
Great stuff.
Yeah, it's great from what I've heard. I just, once again, so much music, and, you can't get to all of it. But I like Agalloch, so that'll be the caveat there.
Yeah.
Yep. James G. Warrior, 1981. What's going on, James? Says, Dillinger escape plan, calculating infinity.
Oh, you know what? All right. I'm going to put an asterisk on mine because there is definitely one that I like a bit more, and that is Irony is a Dead Scene with Mike Patton.
That record rules.
I love that EP.
I do like Calculating Infinity, though.
It's
I don't know. I think there's a 1A and 1B there too. 43% burnt is amazing.
Yeah. Sugar-coated sour. Like
yeah. Dude, that sucks.
I know.
Oh man, which one have I listened to more?
I like a lot of Dillinger stuff. Like Miss Machine's awesome.
Yep.
Ironworks was really experimental, but I like the electronic influences on that one. Mm-hmm. But dude, Irony is a Dead Scene. I love
that record. Is really goddamn good.
It's
I've
so
jammed
damn
that
good.
record a bunch. I don't know what my answer is. I'm gonna say pass right now, but because I'm a big Dillinger fan too, and Calculating Infinity is good, but God, I don't know. Stan096, Stan the man. Brutal Truth. Extreme conditions demand extreme responses.
I mean,
it's good.
I kind of gotta agree. My first album was Sounds of the Animal Kingdom. I love it. That got me into grind. That was one of the big albums for me. But Extreme Conditions is such a good album. I would even argue it's death grind too. There's a lot of death metal riffs on there.
Yep.
But I would put that in the same category as Terrorizer's World Downfall. Just flat out rips.
It rips. Yeah, it's a good record. I would agree with you. Joey Lemix, 7330. Controversial opinion. Tool. I guess it would be Undertow.
Could be talking about Opiate too.
Could
Either one though.
Is it their best album? In my opinion, no. I'm a giant Lateralis fan.
Yeah, Lateralis.
And
Anonymous.
I mean, I guess I should say as a caveat, I'm not the world's biggest Tool fan, but if I had to sit down and pick out a record, for me, it would be Lateralis and Anonymous. So.
I still like Undertow.
I do.
Damn good. Dude, Bottom, Crawl Away.
Yep.
I mean, Sober still hits hard. I still really dig that song. And Opiate's a badass EP.
Yep.
It's very different than the later stuff.
Yes.
So,
yep.
Yeah, I suppose there could be a divide in the fans there in terms of styles. So I get it, but I gotta disagree though.
Alex QQ2FP says A Perfect Circle, Mirror de Normes. I mean,
yeah,
I would agree.
I
would agree. In fact, that was going to be one of our picks that we never got to.
Yep.
But yeah,
that
I
album's
agree.
amazing. I love that album, dude. The lush melodies all over there. It's got some good heavier moments, but it's mostly about the ambiance, the melody. Dude, Three Libras is such a catchy song.
I also really like 13th Step, but Mirror de Normes is a good album. Yep, I would agree. User and a bunch of numbers and letters. That's not it, but that's what it says. Funeral Mist. Salvation is an absolute monster of a black metal album, and it's still this project's best work. You all know where I stand with black metal, and we'll get there.
I have not heard this one, so I really can't say one way or the other on that one, but I'll check it out.
Ivan Lopez 9148 says Exhumed gore metal. My introduction into Exhumed has been in the last 5-10 years. And I have not gone back and listened to the first, but I love Exhumed. I've seen them live multiple times now. I love Exhumed. I just couldn't tell you, Adam from fucking other Adam. I don't know what the metaphor is.
That was probably my first Exhumed album. I either got that or Slaughter Cult at the same time. and I would probably lean more towards like Slaughter Cult or even Necrocracy being one of my personal favorites. Like I know Necrocracy is like quite a bit more like later Carcass rather than early Carcass worship, but man, that album just crushes. I love gore metal. I think the mix is absolutely rotten on that, but there's a fun aesthetic to it, and I really wasn't like the biggest fan of when they re-recorded. Like generally I'm not a big fan of when bands re-record stuff. You know, there are some exceptions obviously, but yeah, I gotta disagree because bare minimum I think Slaughter Cult is a better album overall.
Him King Jetty says Slipknot for them. Yeah, that first Slipknot rules. And I know this is controversial because everyone says Iowa, but I cut my teeth on that first Slipknot record.
Same.
And that album's brilliant.
I love it.
You know, Purity will always be, I think, one of my favorite Slipknot songs anyway, but that whole record is just killer. I recently watched a live performance, 25 years later, and they crushed that, and I would love to see the first album. I didn't see Slipknot until Iowa, so...
I saw them on the first album with Mudvayne and Dope.
Oh.
Yeah, Harpo's in Detroit.
Oh, that would have been dope. Harpo sucks, though.
Yeah, well, the neighborhood does.
I mean, the venue was great. The neighborhood is fucking terrible. But, yeah, I agree. That first Slipknot's killer. Crates Cloud says Foo Fighters with the album Foo Fighters.
Oh, man.
That's tough. I like that album, but I like, man, damn near everything after it, too.
Yeah, dude.
I don't know what...
The Color and Shape, I think, is a better album. Like, dude, there's so many good songs in there. Then, There's Nothing Left to Lose.
Yep.
I really enjoy that one. Foo Fighters have a lot of really good albums.
Granted, there's a bunch of killer stuff on that first record.
There is.
And they released almost everything off of that as a single, too.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
And I think part of that, not only because of the musicianship, but I think part of it, too, is that Dave Grohl is such an awesome human being that it's kind of really difficult to not like Foo Fighters.
That's a hard pick. Like, I mean, honestly, I might go Wasting Light. Is it maybe my favorite one. I love that album. Like, every single song in there is just catchier than hell. Yeah, I gotta disagree, but man, good pull there. That was good.
Yep. Last but not least, and we've been through 137 albums, Kevin Tarrant says Nervosa with Victim of Yourself. And while that's not a bad debut, I have to disagree. If I had to be honest, dude, the last couple records, both Perpetual Chaos and Jailbreak, have been absolute bangers. Dude, Jailbreak was a beast.
Yeah, dude. That's, I think, a little bit more no holds barred. And I don't know, since Preeka is kind of like taken this on her own after, because the whole split. Now there's Crypta and Nervosa. They're both awesome. I like the material now. It's more like straight up death thrash.
Yeah.
I like the earlier like straight up thrash stuff, but like the last two I think have been absolute bangers, and I think some of their strongest material. That debut is pretty good though. Yeah.
It's not bad, but it's not anything in comparison to what the new stuff is.
Yeah.
I think they found their stride. I don't think that everything this band intended themselves to be appeared on the first record.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, like very different lineups.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, Crypta's doing an awesome job. That follow-up album was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was. So that brings us to the end of this. Obviously, thank you to everyone who has played along. We made it through legit like 130 some odd picks, which is crazy. I will say this. There is a ton of music I need to listen to, which I plan on fully listening to, because I don't want this guy to be the only brains in the operation. Not that he is. I would never admit that to him publicly.
You kind of did.
But Nick's smart. I want to be smart like Nick. I want to be able to say, ha, fucker, there's something I know that you don't, which it's going to take a while to get there. But, yeah, there's a bunch I need to listen to. There's a bunch I have heard. I mean, it's music, man. You can't possibly get through all of it, as we're proved here with Thralls of Metal, because we still listen to new stuff all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. And, it'll be a longer video by now. At this point in the video, that. But, yeah, we wanted to do this as, like a little bit more fan interaction for a follow-up, because we could have kept this going probably with, like, more of a series. But I figured, like, this one was just a good debate, and you all commented so much. So we figured this was the way to go about it, because, we want to get our fans involved, because you guys are fucking awesome.
Yeah, you guys are the reason we do this, and I'm sure that we will continue on our own accord with this series. It's been pretty pretty fun to do and pretty successful for us, and we're happy about both of those things. So you'll see more of this in the future. But yeah, we wanted to kind of give back to you guys just because you guys are what keep us going. Like we always say at the end of every video. So, thank you.
So, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below, thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel with the banner in the bottom right-hand corner. But if you're looking for Thrall's Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have t-shirts, both old and new. The old ones are discounted, provided we have your size. And we even have hats, too. So if you're looking for any of that stuff, click the link down below.
And I know I just thanked you a bunch, but I'm going to go ahead and thank you again. Thank you guys for tuning in. Of course, here at Thralls of Metal, album reviews, discography rankings, Nick's collection updates, and a bunch more of these topical discussions, because that's what we enjoy doing. Again, it's all for you guys. It's 2 in the morning here where we're at, and we're still on camera talking to you. It's because we appreciate and we love you guys. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys absolutely rule, and tons more content coming your way. So one more big thank you from me, because you guys are, in fact, unbelievably awesome. Like, a whole new level of awesome. And we will catch you later.